Hello, and welcome back to The Lawless Way, a series of talks based on the book called The Lawless Way by that amazing author, Philip J. Bradbury, who happens to be me. Such modesty. Today promises to be a very short talk because you already know what I'm going to say. Talk is about remembering, and we all imagine that we have great imaginations, that we can think up these amazing inventions and stories and ideas, and whether it's political concepts or social concepts or uh, telephones and all sorts of things. We're endlessly inventive. But I'm going to tell you that we're not, because everything that we have now, we have had before. Everything that we've experienced, whether it's environmentally, whether it's socially, whether it's disease slash health wise, whether it's technologically, we have been through this before many times. Now, there's an organization called the Brahma Kumari, it was started in 1938 in India by an Indian man, a very wealthy Indian man. And it now has around 2,500 centres around Australia. There's one here in Brisbane, there's one just down the road in Gold Coast, there's two in New South Wales and others. And so there will be one near you somewhere. And it's got a massive following, millions. So one of their um, stories, shall I say, is that everything is a cycle. The world revolves, or life goes in a cycle, and we have done this over and over and over again. And their perception or their story is that these are the dark times, and then we will move into light. So this is the end of the worst times, according to the Brahma Kumari. And that same story, that same, if you like, theory, has been repeated in so many different cultures, shall we say, different philosophies. The Mayans, who were here, based around Guatemala in Central America, they had a massive civilization, and they built effectively pyramids and all sorts of incredible things. And they have the same story that the world goes in cycles. And they have what they call baktuns, Baktun, which is around about 2,500 years. So they say that the world revolves in 2,500 year cycles, or 2,400 and something. Um, and so that's the same for them, the same for the Tibetans, the same for so many different cultures and philosophies, that the world simply goes in cycles. It goes enlightened, and then we slip into darkness, and then we come back out again. And even in shorter cycles, we have lost things that were here before, and they will come back again. For example, in 1535, the Spanish explorer sailed into New Zealand, to the east coast of New Zealand in Hicks Bay, and then he sailed down to the Wellington harbour, stopped there for a couple of days, and then they sailed down to the north of the South Island, sort of around Nelson, and him and his sailors, they lived there for about, I think it's about 18 months, might be longer. He married a Maori woman there, had a child, and so on. And their evidence of them being here is in many places in New Zealand, particularly in the Wellington Museum, which is hidden. The New Zealanders do not want to acknowledge that um, the Brits were not there first. The Spanish were there before them. The Indians were there with the Tamil Bell. The Dutch were there, of course. Not Magellan, Tasman. And so, but anyway, Jose Fernandez and the Spanish explorers, sailors, they had maps that were more complete than the one that Cook had. In fact, they had maps that showed every aspect, every geographical, part of the world. So when Jose Fernandez arrived in New Zealand in 1535, he already knew exactly where he was going. He had the map of New Zealand. And back then in the early 1500s, the Spanish and the Portuguese, they got together because they had the map of the world, incredibly detailed, as if it was drawn from outer space. Their maps were just incredible. And so what they did was they split the world up in two. They said, we the Spanish, we will have this bit and you can have the other half. So they agreed. And so that's how South America, for example, most of it is Spanish speaking, and the bit that sticks out to the right, east, is Portuguese. They they took these existing countries and said, okay, we will have this bit, and you'll have the bit, and so the Portuguese got the east of South America and further around. And when you look at the map of Australia, there's a state line between Northern Territory and Western Australia. That is part of the line that the Spanish and the Portuguese drew around the planet. And the Portuguese had half of the world, and the Spanish had the other half. And so these maps were drawn up with incredible accuracy, with incredible perspective, as if someone had been out there in space and drawn them, and then we lost them. And then Cook had to come over with this little pad and sail around and draw as he went. So somehow between the 1500s and between when Cook arrived 100 or so years later, we lost the maps. And there are so many technologies that we have lost. And even today, we don't know how the pyramids were built. The ones there's pyramids obviously in Egypt, there's ones in Guatemala from the Mayans, there's ones in Vietnam, and so many places, whether it's Machu Picchu in Peru. There are so many structures that we do not know how to replicate. There are technologies that we had that disappeared, and they will come back again. And so that is how life is. And so we think that these are the dark times, if you like, and perhaps they are. Feels fine to me. But yes, I know that a lot of people are living in fear. But what I can tell you is we have done this before. We have done this many times before. And these crazy, dark, fearful times, they are just one of the bad scenes in a play that we have performed over and over again. And I hope this gives comfort, because knowing that it's just what we've done. We've done it over and over. We've invented amazing things and we've forgotten them. And then we invent them again. And whatever it is, maps and spaceships. And yeah, we've had all these incredible building technologies that we don't know how we did it then. So it's not a linear history. We're not gradually going up and up and up like this curve, because we are less civilized, we are less technologically able than civilizations were 4,500 years ago. And I've seen this in Egypt, and I've seen it in other places in the world where we do not have technology that existed back then. So that is a cycle. And when we think like Jules Verne and all sorts of people, I'm a story writer and I write stories, and I've written stories about having organic transport. So we have a little car when there's one of us, and then we get married, and so we can grow the car. And then we have children, and we can grow it larger. And we can decide whether this vehicle, shall we say, which has not been invented, and yet it has, we can decide whether we're going to go along the road or we can go and fly in it with our family. And then when we don't need such a large vehicle, we can organically shrink it again. So I, if you like, imagine these things, and I've written about them. It just comes to me. But I don't imagine it out of nothing. I imagine it out of my memory. I have been there. I have experienced that kind of life. I have been in those technologies, and I have used them. I may not have invented them. Um, so everything we think we invent, whether it's stories, whether it's technology, whether it's social systems or political systems or monetary economic systems, none of them, not a single one is new. And I hope this gives hope to people, because when we look at the world, we think we're on a downward slide and it's going to crash, and we're doing environmental savagery, political savagery. We're destroying the world. We're destroying the economics. We're destroying people's rights. We're destroying everything. And yet it's just another scene in the play that we are playing over and over again. And if we can look at it from the larger perspective, as particularly the more indigenous cultures that are more in touch with their history, more in touch with spirit, if you like, with their souls, with that larger wisdom that is with us. If we can stay in touch or return to that recall, we'll realize that we're not using our imagination. We are using our memories. And if we can stop, and I would suggest meditation, but whatever stills you, whatever brings you to mindfulness or mindlessness is probably a better word, presence, where we lose the daily worries, where we can find a way of returning to soul, returning to the nothingness, to the abyss, to the emptiness. When we return to that emptiness, and it might be walking in nature, it might be cooking, what it might be, I don't know, skateboarding, it might be doing something. It doesn't have to be being still. We all have a a thing, if you like, that when we're doing it, we lose sense of time. We lose sense of everything. It's even beyond joy and contentment. It's just doing. And I know, for example, that's my mother's technique, if you like. It's what she loves doing, is cooking. And when she's cooking, her kitchen is a complete mess. It's a bombshell. It's a bomb. There's stuff everywhere. Um, but she's in her presence, and she just loves doing that. It and we all have something. I guess I do that on my motorbike. I do that while I'm meditating, so I can be doing it incredibly fast. If you like, taking risks, and somehow, even though I'm present to the motorbike and everything one needs to do, there is a part of my mind that can loose itself from the daily stuff that's going on. And in that emptiness, in that space that I give it, and I could do it while I'm meditating as well, and I do it while I'm writing as well. That's where I can sit in a busy cafe, and it does not exist. And you will find your own place, your own activity, if you like, or non-activity. And it might be in nature, it might be swimming, it might be in the bush, it might be anything. It doesn't have to be a particularly, dare I say, spiritual thing. We don't need candles and robes and stuff like that, although that might suit you. That's fine. When we can return to that non-being, non-thinking place in some way, whether it's with activity or non-activity, we will start to, it will feel like we're imagining new worlds and new places and new anything. But we're not imagining, we're remembering. We're remembering that which we have lost. And there is a lot that we have, an absolute a lot we have lost. And when we can stop and listen and be with that listening, we will realize that we have played this scene before. And we know what the ending is going to be. It's a happy ending. The play, the full play is a happy ending. It's just that some scenes are happy and then some scenes are not. And this scene is one of the least happy ones. But the ending is sure. And the ending is actually very, very close in the sense that any book, whether it's a thriller or an opera, it starts off sort of lots of description and lots of this is what's going on, and then it's the drama builds and it gets more and more heavy and it gets more and more fearful, and the most fearful part of any story, it builds right to the climax at the end, and that's where we are. We're in the climax, that fearful, scary climax at the end, as are all stories, and we're living this story, and it's always the last second. Suddenly, the light dawns. And so just know that the worse that it is, the closer is the end. And we can stop and let it go and know we've done it before. And we will do this again, and it's okay. So I simply suggest yes, there's insanity going on. There's pain. There's people are terrified. Not logically terrified, but they have been brought to their knees by what they believe is something dreadful and finite and final. It's not a straight line, it is a circle. And any misery that's going on, any fear that is going on, let us remember we've done this before and it's the end of the story. And a new story will start. The same new story as the Mayans and everybody else agrees. A lovely story. Very. We just cannot stop ourselves. And as the Course of Miracles says, whenever we come to a crossroads, whenever we come to having to make a decision, do I go here? Do I do this? What do I do? A Course of Miracles tells us we have already made the decision. And those of you who think you have control, who think there's no such thing, if you like, as destiny, that we make every choice, sorry, we've already made the choice. Let's just go with it and enjoy it. Because the story, because of the badness that's going on, that in itself proves that it's over. And for so many people that I know, including myself, then the ending has happened. The new story has started. And there's like a global story that is happening, but there is also an individual story. And even though the new story has started, let's say, the new story has started, but it will take some time for some people to realize that. Some people think they are still in the old story, and it's fearful and it's painful and it's dreadful and it's it's just this huge fog of fear, and they can't see through the curtain to realize the new the new play, the new old play has started again. Whereas some of us are realizing the new one has started. It's wonderful. And it's peaceful and it's simple. And it's bright. And it's connected. And it's just peaceful and contented. So Some of us are already living in the new story, and it just takes a change of mind, a change of perception. So I hope I'll give you heart. I hope I'll give you, if you like, a technique to see beyond this silly world that for some people think is still going, and it's not. Um, and even if it is, then it's right at the end of the story. So have a nice day. Have another nice day. And whatever you see in your imagination, remember, it's not your imagination, it's your amazing memory. And let us slip back into those memories and live the new story because it's already here. Bless you, and thank you so much for listening.